Okay, we are picking back up on 245. We're going to try to get today up through chapter 25. I'm hoping as long as I'm still standing upright. So, we were in the chapter 12 with Professor Umbridge. Harry mentions Voldemort. She penalizes him. She gives him detention and such. She takes points away from his house. And she says that Cedric Diggory's death, bottom of 245, was a tragic accident. Harry, it was murder. Voldemort killed him, and you know it. Okay? So she gives him a note, and he takes it to McGonagall. 247. You louted at her. You yelled at her? Yep. You called her a liar? Yep. You told her, notice she doesn't say Voldemort. He who must not be named is back? Yep. What do you think Harry's expecting at that point? Definitely not the next thing she says. He's probably expecting punishment. Oh, man, don't do that. My head is really, I'm just swimming. He's probably expecting punishment. Even more punishment than Umbridge has already given him. Have a biscuit, Potter. He's like, what? She goes on and talks about why Umbridge is there. Bottom of 248. Well, middle of 248. Potter, you need to be careful. Misbehavior in Dolores Umbridge's class could cost you much more than house points and a detention. Such as expulsion, arrest, Well, use your common sense. You know where she comes from. You must know to whom she is reporting. So, she says, you have detention every night this week. And Harry immediately says, well, can you? Implying, can you get me out of it? You're my head of house. And she says, no. She's your teacher. She has every right to what? To punish you, to torment you. Okay? And then she says, middle of 249. If you watched the lecture I sent last week, when I was like this, I talked in the opening couple of chapters. Harry starts, how do I want to put this? Harry has to learn one particular virtue in this book. Just one. Self-control. We saw the scene when he was sitting on the park swing and Dudley and his gang were over there. Harry's thinking, come on, turn around, look at me. And then we're told he mastered himself. Okay? So here, now we have a teacher telling him, you've got to take control. Okay? She says, where am I? Harry, but I was telling the truth, top of 249. You know he's back. For heaven's sake, Potter, do you really think this is about truth or lies? It's about keeping your head down and your temper under control. What does she mean? Do you think this is really about truth or lies? Truth or lies are kind of academic things. They're theoretical. I'm not saying that they're unimportant. What is Rowling is saying important? What does she mean by keep your head down? Why do you keep your head down? Incoming fire. She's saying, Harry, this isn't anymore about just theoretical right and wrong. This is about what? Staying alive.
So he's got to choose his battles.
Got to choose which battles you're going to die on, because once you choose a battle to die in, you only die once. So, She asks Harry, did you listen to her speech? Yeah, well, Ministry of Magic's interfering. Well, at least I'm glad Hermione Granger listened to it. No, what is she telling us there? What Harry learns, who'd he get it from? He gets it from Hermione. Okay? So, detention with Dolores. How many times has Harry had detention in the past? Who's he had it with? Who's it always seem to be with? It's always with Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers. Snape doesn't give him detention. Harry gets, he gets the one for being up on the astronomy tower, in book 1. Okay, but that's kind of out of it. It's usually with Defense Against the Dark Arts. So they go to McGonagall's class, and she talks to them about owls and things like that. Let's see here. Where is that? So he goes to the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher's dungeon, which during Lockhart's tenure, the walls are plastered, with posters and things of himself. When Moody has the class, Barty Crouch Jr., all these dark arts detectors and such. When Lupin has it, all these dark creatures are in jars and things. She's got warm kitties and whatever. So Harry has to write lines. Did any of you ever have to write lines in school? I did, because I was a loudmouth, making jokes, cracking off, and I would have to write, I will not talk in class. One time I had to do like 500 of these suckers, and I cheated. Back in those days, blackboards, every classroom had one of those things that holds a piece of chalk that holds 4 pieces of chalk for drawing musical staff or whatever it's called. So I cheated. I put 4 pieces in, and every time I wrote one, I wrote 4. Still took like an hour. So he has to write lines. He says, bottom of 266, you haven't given me any ink. She gives him a quill, but no ink. Oh, you won't need ink. So he pulls out the paper, and he writes on it, I must not tell lies. Gasps in pain, looks at his other hand. She makes a comment. Harry says nothing. I didn't make a noise. He writes lines until what happens on his hand. He has inscribed, I must not tell lies, and it's bleeding. Okay? He leaves. Doesn't say a word to her. He finally tells Ron and Hermione, bottom of 272. Here, what's that on the back of your hand? It's just a cut. Ron pulls his hand up, says, I thought you said she was giving you lines. Harry said she was. She's sick. Like she's a sadist. Go to McGonagall, this is 272. Ron says you can't let her get away with this. Okay, tell Dumbledore. No, why not? He's got enough on his mind. Why really does Harry not want to tell Dumbledore? He isn't speaking with Dumbledore. He hasn't talked to Dumbledore. Dumbledore hasn't said anything to him. He doesn't want to be seen, running to him. Okay? Very last attention, page 275, she says, let's see if you've gotten the message yet. She goes towards him, stretches out her fingers for his arm. She looks at it. It hurts, doesn't it? I think I've made my point. What's her point? What literally is her point? Is it that he must not tell lies?
That he needs to follow her instructions.
Possibly. I'm not saying it's not. I don't know what the exact point is. Unless it's that she has the ability to inflict real physical pain. Inflicting real physical pain is what? Is this just punishment? No. This is torture. This is telling us about Dolores Jane Umbridge's mind and the mind of those behind her, the Ministry for Magic. Okay? These are not good people, in other words. So, he goes to the common room, chapter 14. Harry sends a letter to Sirius, talks about Umbridge, talks about the time when he saw her and his stomach hurt. We see at the bottom of 287, a bit from the Daily Prophet about a trespassing at the Ministry of Magic. Sturgis Podmore is mentioned. Okay? Found trying to get into a top security door. Is charged, convicted, sent to 6 months in Azkaban. Why Sturgis Podmore? Where have we seen / heard of him?
Was he with the Forward Guard?
I'm drawing a blank. He was in the picture.
He's in the original.
He's part of the original Order of the Phoenix. Okay? So they've got Quidditch practice, Percy and Padfoot. Ron gets his letter from his brother Percy, 296 through 298. What is Percy telling Ron? Keep away from Harry Potter. Kind of hard to do when he shares a room with him. Keep away from Dumbledore. What does he say about Dumbledore? He's lost his touch. He's out of touch. And he's on his way out of power. All right? What does that tell us about Ron? Better to side with those whose power is rising. Which is kind of dangerous because within this context, it's talking about the Ministry for Magic. Kind of thought experiment question. Would Percy side with Voldemort if Voldemort offered him power? What in one of the scenes when they were at Flourish and Blotts, and I can't remember which book, Percy was caught looking at a book that had the title something like Prefects Who Got Power. Okay? And I think it's Ron tells Harry, Percy's always wanted power. It indicates this, or it introduces us to this, not just, bad side of Percy, this really dark side of him, so to speak. All right? So he says, I wish we had been more time to talk over the summer, blah, 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 blah. What does he say about his parents? Specifically his father. He's chosen the wrong side. And he's talking there not only about, he's talking there about Dumbledore and the Order. Okay? So they meet up with Sirius, 301, 302, and Harry tells Ron and Sirius that Dumbledore said when his scar hurts, top of 302, he said it's happening whenever Voldemort was feeling a powerful emotion. He said, so maybe it was because, I don't know, he was really angry or something the night I had that detention. Sirius, well, now that he's back, it's bound to hurt more often. Right? Now that he has physical form, his emotions are that much stronger. So, Harry, you don't think it had anything to do with Umbridge touching me? Doubt it. Why? I know her by reputation. I'm sure she's no Death Eater. She's no supporter of Voldemort. Harry, she's foul enough to be one. Sirius then makes a very important statement. Yes, that is, I understand, Harry. He's commiserating with Harry, making Harry feel better. But the world isn't split into good people and Death Eaters. Oh, man. Come off there. What does he mean by that? Are these opposites? Not necessarily. What does he really mean? You have good people, you have bad people, and then you have Death Eaters. In other words, there's a lot of people in that category who aren't Death Eaters. Why does Sirius/Rowling say that? What might he/she be suggesting? Not everyone who's not nice, put it that way, is evil. Some are just not nice. And that their being not nice could have an awful lot to do with background, upbringing, all that kind of stuff. We're going to see several people. Well, we've seen some, we're going to see more. Who, while bad, they're not evil. Okay? They're not Voldemortian evil. So, they keep talking about her. He mentions, she's responsible for anti-werewolf legislation, so Lupin's familiar with her and such. He goes on and says she loathes part humans. Who else do we know of as part human? So Lupin's part human because of the werewolf disease. Hagrid. She campaigned to have mer people rounded up and tagged last year. Okay. Imagine wasting your time and energy persecuting mer people when there are little toe rags like creature on the loose. What did Sirius tell Harry, Ron, and Hermione, book 4, in the cave, about how Hermione had the measure of Barty Crouch Sr.? And he says, you want to know how to measure a man? How to kind of test his worth? Do what?
See how, people in power treat the ones that are bigger.
See how they treat their inferiors. How does Sirius treat Creature? He just called him a toe rag. Okay? Does he do that because he's not human?
I think it's just because Creature is so devoted to his mother who he hates.
Creature is so bad. He's not people because he's house elf. I think partly it is because he's not human. Because he's not human, he doesn't have to be treated the same. Okay? Hermione, Sirius, honestly, if you made a bit of an effort with Creature, I'm sure he'd respond. After all, you are the only member of his family he's got left. So notice what Hermione thinks. Creature is part of Sirius's family, even though Creature's really what? What are house elves?
Slaves.
That's a nice way of putting it. They're slaves. Okay? And Dumbledore and Sirius interrupts them. So what are Umbridge's lessons like? She training you all to kill half-breeds? Harry, no, she's not letting us use magic at all. Ron, all we do is read the textbook. So, they keep talking. They talk about Hagrid. They talk about Madame Maxime. They want to know where Hagrid is. Sirius says, Dumbledore's not worried. I'm sure Hagrid's fine. Don't ask too many questions about Hagrid. It'll draw questions as to he's not here. Hermione asks if he saw the Daily Prophet. 304 at the bottom. He says, yes, they're always guessing where I am. They haven't really got a clue. Harry, this time, we think this time they have. Something Malfoy said on the train made us think he knew it was you, and his father was on the platform. Sirius? What was it he said? Anybody remember? Something about the big black dog. Okay? Sirius, all right, I've got the point. Just an idea. Thought you might like to get together. That is, what is Sirius suggesting? Leaving number 12, Grimmel Place, to meet with them, like at Hogsmeade. And then he looks at Harry. You're less like your father than I thought. The risk would have been what made it fun for James. What does the risk mean? What risk? Who would be in more risk? Sirius or Harry? Sirius. Okay? Remember at the end of Prisoner of Azkaban? Well, not quite the end. A little bit past the middle. When Harry gets caught in Hogsmeade, Malfoy sees his head because the thing falls off. He runs back. Lupin kind of rescues him. And at the end of that chapter, Lupin says, I would have thought hearing your parents' voices would have made you take, what's going on more seriously, rather than throw away their sacrifice for you. And that makes Harry kind of stand up, so to speak, and take note of what's going on. Okay? Sirius says, don't worry, I'll write to tell you a time when I can make it back into the fire, if you can stand to risk it, and he disappears. Chapter 15. The first of several educational decrees from the Ministry of Magic. Page 306. Ministry seeks educational reform. Dolores Umbridge appointed first ever High Inquisitor. And then we have a long passage discussing what the purpose of the High Inquisitor is, and they're quoting Percy, blah, 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 blah. Stuff about, Dumbledore's losing his ability. He's kind of beginning Alzheimer's and such. He's been cast out of the International Confederation of Wizards and all that kind of honorary positions. Okay? What is meant by High Inquisitor? By the way, it's not a term that Rowling invents.
It's like the reference in the Spanish Inquisition.
The reference is to the Spanish Inquisition. Jesuit society within the Catholic Church started a process of inquisiting where they brought people before them and tortured them into telling them what they wanted to hear. Okay? Supposedly to root out corruption and blasphemy and heresy within the church. A lot of people were put to the stake, put to death, crucified, burned, the whole 9 yards. All right? So she's going to be the first High Inquisitor at Hogwarts, which gives her what? What kind of power does it give her?
Ultimate power over.
She gets to go around to any instructor and start asking questions. She does it during their classroom teaching time, however. All right? So, 310, 311, they're talking about owl grades and such. Harry goes off to divination, talking to Trelawney. I'm going to skip a bunch. Has a dream. 318, 319. He gets in trouble again. He gets sent off to McGonagall. Detention, 318. From whom? Umbridge. She says, and you're telling me after what I told you last Monday, you lost your temper in Umbridge's class again. So it's only been a week. He's gone through an entire week of detention. This is the next week. Yes, Potter, you must get a grip on yourself. You're heading for serious trouble. He takes more points off Gryffindor and such. Okay? Skip a bunch again. 326, 327. So, the earlier conversation when they were talking about owls, Fred and George are talking about, the kind of grades you can get, dreadful and troll and etc. They're talking about what a horrible teacher Umbridge is. They want to do well on their owls. And Ron, bottom of 325. We can't do much by ourselves. That is, in terms of learning defense against the dark arts. I mean, okay, we can go look up jinxes, etc. Hermione, you're right. We're past that stage. We need a teacher, a proper one, who can show us how to use the spells and correct us if we're going wrong. If you're talking about Lupin and they cut him off. No, not talking about Lupin, Hermione says. He's too busy. Well, who then? Hermione heaved a very deep sigh. Is that because she's filling her lungs and because the idea she's going to throw out there is so ludicrous, so out of this world? Or does she, because Harry's so dense? Isn't it obvious? I'm talking about you, Harry, 326. About me what? About you teaching us defense against the dark arts. Harry stares at her. Then he looks at Ron. Ron's got a silly grin on his face. And Ron says, that's an idea. What's an idea? Notice, Harry still doesn't get it. You teaching us to do it, but I'm not a teacher. I can't. You're the best in this year, our year, at defense against the dark arts. He says, no, I'm not. You beat me in every test. Actually, I haven't, she says. You beat me in our third year, the only year they sat for the test. Why? First year, what happened to Quirrell? Died. Second year, what happened to Lockhart? Oblivious. He's oblivious. Okay? Look what you've done. Okay, so then she says, I'm not talking about test results, Harry. Look what you've done. This takes us back to the end of book 1. Harry, you're a great wizard. You know that, don't you? He says, oh, book learning. No, Harry, not book learning. Real virtues, friendship, loyalty. Look what you've done. Harry, what do you mean? Ron, 327. I'm not so sure I want someone this stupid teaching me. And he goes, let's see. First year, you saved the stone from Harry. That was luck. That wasn't skill. Ron, second year, you killed the basilisk, destroyed Riddle. Yeah, but the fox haven't turned up. Third year, you fought off about 100 Dementors. There's a fluke at the time turner. Last year, you fought off you-know-who again. And then Harry, listen to me. Okay, that whole little scene, we've already seen played out. In Harry's mind, when? Anybody remember? They're at number 12 Grimmauld Place. Ron has gotten the letter announcing he's a prefect. And Harry's like, what the hell? And he goes back and mentally goes through every one of these same things. And he's like, I saved the Philosopher's Stone. I defeated Voldemort in the Chamber of Secrets. I fought off the Dementors. I defeated Voldemort last year. Ron uses the exact same things, and every time now Harry hears these, he discounts them. Why? I think there's a reason. It's probably not a popular, if anybody else has suggested it, probably not a popular reason. When Harry's doing that earlier, what's he doing? He's kind of stroking his ego. He's trying to make himself feel better. Here, he's being humble. And I don't think, by that, I don't mean Harry's going, gee, I need to be humble here. I think this is Harry's default state. When he's praised, he kind of sloughs it off. Listen, all right? Sounds great when you say it like that. But all that stuff was luck. He wasn't saying it was luck to his mind when he was thinking, I should be prefect. I didn't know what I was doing half the time. I didn't plan any of it. I just did whatever I could think of. And I nearly always had help. Luck? Accident? How did he nearly always had help? Ron, Hermione, book 1. Ron, book 2. Book 3, Ron, Hermione. Again. Book 4. What was the help? What? The wands, spells connect, and what happens? Okay, so possibly that help. What before that? The Golden Dome, and what does Harry hear? Phoenix song. And it's kind of like a charge. Makes him feel better. It gives him confidence. And then the things start popping out of the wand, and they're like, hold on, Harry. By the way, what kind of help is that? I mean, it's not physical help, right? Emotional, inspirational kind of help. What else? Let's use Dumbledore's language. Where are those echoes coming from? That's why I don't think they're echoes, folks. I think they're souls. And they're coming from, to use Harry's language earlier in the book, the world beyond. Okay? Ron and Hermione are smirking at him. Why? Because everything he's saying is not making the point he thinks it's making. Because every time he's done one of these things, how has he done it? Instinctively. And they're going, he can't teach us instincts, but he can kind of get us close. I mean, go back to Goblet of Fire at the Quidditch match. Harry sees all the wizards apparate around him, and what does he do? Duck! Ron and Hermione, they would have been goners if Harry hadn't done that. Don't sit there grinning like you know better than I. I was there, wasn't I? I know what went on. I didn't get through any of that because I was brilliant at Defense Against the Dark Arts. I got through it all because help came at the right time. It's that whole idea of synergy I've kind of talked about before. And they keep laughing. 327. You don't, at the bottom, very bottom, you don't know what it's like. You, neither of you, you've never had to face him. That's when Harry gets serious here. I'm really surprised she didn't print this part, or have this part printed in all caps. Like Harry's yelling at them. You think it's memorizing a bunch of spells, throwing them at him? Like you're in You think that I'm a clever little boy to be standing here alive? Like Diggory was stupid? See, the reason Harry speaks up in that first class, first Defense Against the Dark Arts class, he's standing up for Cedric Diggory's memory. It wasn't an accident. Ron, we weren't saying anything like that, mate. We weren't having a go at Diggory. No, you got it all wrong. Hermione, don't you see? This is exactly why we need you. We need to know what it's like. Well, who's already taught them what it's like? Barty Crouch Jr. Almost everybody on the quiz, second, I can't remember, first or second quiz, Goblet of Fire, the question, what does Barty Crouch say it takes in order to throw off the unforgivable curses? Almost everybody put constant vigilance. No. You need constant vigilance to know when they're about to be used against you. What do you need to throw them off? Strength of character. Harry has that strength of character. Why? We saw it at the beginning of this book. Dudley and his friends. think about it, please? He's like, okay. In the Hogshead. Hogshead is a very popular pub name in England. You can go in almost any town and see one named Hogshead. So, Harry agrees. He'll go to this little informational meeting. And they tell, Ron and Hermione tell Harry, we've invited a couple of friends. 336, 337. First of all, what kind of place is the Hogshead? Is this a fine, upstanding establishment, Bennigan's or something like that, or a real popular bar, Bar Louie? No. This is the little hole in the wall that the biker gang goes into, the wizarding biker gang, right? So, they start ordering drinks, bottom of 337. Hermione, Harry asked, so who did you say is supposed to be meeting us? Just a couple of people. Beginning at the very bottom of 337, with first came Neville, with Dean and Lavender. How many is that? That's 3. That's not a couple. By the time we get to the end, there are, in addition to Harry, Ron, and Hermione, there are 25 people. So there's a total of 28. A couple of people, Harry says. So, they talk about what they want to do. Zachariah Smith keeps, pushing Harry. Show us, prove it to us, what did it look like when Voldemort killed Cedric and stuff. Fred and George, threatened to clean his ears with a long skewer. And we're told at the bottom of 341, this one girl asks, is it true you can produce a Patronus? Harry, yeah. A corporeal Patronus? Meaning a Patronus with a real body? You're not related to Madame Bones, are you? She says, yes, I'm Susan Bones. She's my auntie. She told me you can make a stag Patronus. Lee Jordan, on the Quidditch team with them, announcer for the Quidditch. Blimey, Harry, I never knew that. Fred says, Mom told Ron not to spread it around. Okay? Terry Boot, and did you kill a basilisk with that sword that hangs in Dumbledore's office? Notice, that's supposed to be a secret. Yeah. And Neville, and he saved the Sorcerer's Stone. Why does Rowling have Neville say sorceress? It's a huge, don't do that. It's a huge, what's called malapropism. Means when you use the wrong word. He's actually created a wrong word. Because the us at the end, he's probably thinking phosphorus. Okay, is what some critics have suggested, which still isn't close to philosophers.
So, what does he say in, the European version? Is it...
Because this is the American.
Yeah.
That's why.
Oh, okay.
The British version, which I have at home, he says the philosophy. He says, no, take that back. The British version says this.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so in the American version, they've combined the American sorcerer with us, sorceress. Okay? It's just stupid. And then Cho says, and all the stuff he had to do in the Triwizard Tournament, he even brought, Cedric's body back, She doesn't mention that part, but. So, they all agree they're going to kind of do this. Hermione's going to come up with a way to signal when they'll have meetings. 350. Educational decree number 24. Okay? Hereby, all student organizations, societies, teams, groups, clubs are banned. An organization, society, team, group, or club is hereby defined as a regular meeting of 3 or more students. What does it mean? Who can't meet together in the common room? The Gryffindor common room. Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Slytherin common room. Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle. Okay? So, they meet, they get a message from Sirius about meeting where they met before. We're going to skip a bunch. Dumbledore's Army, chapter 18. They find the room because Dobby shows it to Harry. Where is it? 386. Harry tells Dobby, I need to find a place where 28 people can practice defense against the dark arts without being discovered by any of the teachers. He's already seen this room. He just doesn't remember it. It was introduced in book 4. So, Dobby tells him about the room of requirement, the room that becomes whatever you need it to be at that moment. They go in, 389 and following. So, it is a room needed where they can teach defense against the dark arts spells and not be revealed. They go inside, there's bookcases, and the bookcases are loaded with books about how to do counter spells and such. The floor is carpeted, and there's big pillows everywhere so that you can get knocked out and fall and not get hurt. Cool? What are we told? Well, they have to come up with a name. We'll get various names proposed. And Ginny proposes DA after, well, Cho proposes DA for Defense Association. Ginny says, DA's good, but let's make it after Dumbledore's Army. Why? That's what the Ministry of Magic is afraid of. So, Harry starts doing his lessons. 393. He has everybody pair up, and he says, first thing we're going to do is Expelliarmus, page 392. You know, the disarming charm. I know it's pretty basic, but I found it really useful. Oh, please, says Zachariah Smith. I don't think Expelliarmus is exactly going to help us against you-know-who. Harry saved my life last year. Just kind of shuts him up. How do we know Harry's a good teacher? Who learns this? This first night.
Oh,
Neville. Neville says, 393, I did it. I've never done it before. I did it. And then the narrator says, good one, said Harry, encouragingly deciding not to point out that in a real duel situation, Neville's opponent was unlikely to be staring in the opposite direction. Why does Harry not point that out? Say that again? It would discourage Neville. What does Neville need more than anything else? He needs confidence. He needs to be built up. Why? He's got that witch, literally, at home who does what? We're going to see in this book.
Constantly belittles him, or compares him to his father.
She compares him to his father and thus tears him down. Okay? Which is kind of interesting because of what we're going to learn at the end of this book about Neville. Okay? And then we're going to see in later books. So, he is alone with Cho at the end and Lion and the Serpent. All right? Skip a bunch. Malfoy makes the little badges that says Weasley is our king. We have the little song that goes with it on 407. Various lyrics to it. We're going to skip a bunch. Harry gets hit by a bludger in the Quidditch, and Quidditch gets banned. Chapter 20, Hagrid's Tale. Hagrid shows up. He's kind of beat up. They get him to tell him where he's been. What's he been gone for? What did Dumbledore suggest to Fudge as the first thing that should be done? The end of Goblet of Fire, tells him Voldemort's back, etc. He gives him a piece of advice. It's the very first piece of advice.
He just sent emissaries to the Giants.
Send an emissary, send an ambassador to the Giants. We need to get the Giants on our side. Second thing is, get the Dementors out of Azkaban. Okay? It should be like putting Nazis in charge of guarding a prison full of Nazis. Okay? Fudge responds to both of those not well. He said, get the Giants on our side. He'd be thrown out of office. Right? What motivates Fudge more than anything else?
Preserving his image.
His position. He wants to stay in office as long as he can. Notice there aren't term limits, so to speak. Okay? So, Hagrid tells them about going off to the Giants and such. Umbridge comes by, etc. We're going to skip all that. Chapter 21. Does he tell them anything about Grop? Not yet. Okay? Chapter 21. It's coming towards Christmas time. It's almost Christmas. And Hagrid has them all sitting around for a lesson. He introduces them to the Thestrals. What are Thestrals? Pages 446 and following. What do they look like? Put it that way.
Like skeletal horses with serpentine heads.
Skeletal horses with like a snake or dragon's head with wings. They're a Pegasus, in other words, but no skin. Or it doesn't really look like they have skin. Who can see Thestrals? This is the problem in the writing, by the way. Huge.
Only people who've seen death.
Only people who've seen death. We're going to find out Neville sees them. We're going to find out Luna sees them. Harry sees them. Now, why didn't Harry see them at the beginning of the book? Why didn't Harry see them at the end of book 4? He saw death just before the end of book 4. Rowling has said in a couple of interviews, and I think she had this on Pottermore for a while, he said, Harry hadn't processed that he'd seen death. That's a lame answer. Okay? So, Umbridge observes Hagrid in class, and let's see here. They have another DA meeting. 4:58, 4:59. Cho tries to kiss Harry. They kiss. She's full of tears. Harry thinks he's a horrible kisser. 4:58, 59. Harry, Ron, and Hermione are talking, and Hermione says, "Don't you understand how Cho's feeling at the moment?" "No," Harry and Ron say. So she explains. Obviously, she's feeling very sad because of Cedric dying. So how long's Cedric been dead? If this is December, Cedric's been dead. They usually don't break for school until like June. So almost 6 months, not very long for a young love. So she's feeling very sad because of Cedric dying. Then I expect she's feeling confused because she likes Cedric and now she likes Harry. And she can't work out who she likes best. What's the problem with that statement? I'm glad that we're all men here. What do you mean she can't figure out who she likes best? One of them's dead. That's not a problem anymore. Talk about this to my daughters when they were both really reading the books, and they're like, Dad, she's very much like Hermione. Then she'll be feeling guilty because it's an insult to Cedric's memory to be kissing Harry at all. And she'll be worrying about what everyone else might say about her if she starts going out with Harry. Why would anyone say anything? Totally foreign to my way. I just don't get it. And she probably can't work out what her feelings toward Harry are anyway, because he was the one who was with Cedric when Cedric died. So that's all very mixed up and painful. And she's afraid she's going to be thrown off the Ravenclaw Quidditch team because she's been flying so badly. Ron. One person can't feel all that at once. They'd explode. Just because you've got the emotional range of a teaspoon doesn't mean we all have. That little sequence. Rowling's genius. That so encapsulates the difference between male and female thinking. Because most guys I've talked to who've read these books, students have talked to me and stuff about it, they're like, Ron's entirely right. Most women are like, Hermione's entirely right. Anyways, there's no other great significance to that other than to point that out. We find out Hermione's been in contact with Victor Crumb. Harry starts having a dream. The dream involves he's running down that corridor again. There's a door at the end. He wants to get through. He doesn't know why he wants to get through. He sees a man sitting in front of the door with the silvery cloak. It falls off him. It's Mr. Weasley. Blood all over the place. Harry wakes up screaming. Okay? McGonagall goes and gets him. She takes him to Dumbledore. 466. Dumbledore asks Harry some questions. All right? McGonagall says it was a nightmare. 467. Harry, it wasn't a nightmare. What's the difference between what Harry has and a nightmare? For Harry, this is real. So she says, okay, you tell him. So he says, I was asleep, which makes it sound like it was a nightmare. Dumbledore asks, 468, how did you see this? Harry, inside my head? What do you mean? But Dumbledore doesn't look at Harry. This is the first contact they've had since the trial, and even then, they didn't even have contact. No, Dumbledore. Can you remember where you were positioned as you watched this attack happen? Were you perhaps standing beside the victim, or else looking down from above? Such a curious question. Dumbledore gaped at Harry gaped at Dumbledore. It's almost as though he knew. I was the snake. What does that mean? I saw it all from the snake's point of view. So I saw, like, my vision got closer to and latched on, bit. Is Arthur seriously injured? Yes. Like, finally, somebody understands. So Dumbledore gives some orders, okay? And Harry says, but Mr. Weasley, 469, could be anywhere. Dumbledore, sit down, all three of you, Harry, Ron, Hermione. Everard and Dillis may not be back for several minutes. McGonagall, could you drop chairs? And she literally draws chairs with her wand. He says, we need a warning. Fawkes leaves. Okay. They look at the pensive. Dumbledore says, okay, I get it. In essence, divided. 471. So one of the former headmasters comes back into the portrait, says they've taken him to St. Mungo's, they've carried him past under my portrait, he looks bad. Says Minerva, go wake up the other Weasleys. She does. And she asks, what about Molly? He says, Fawkes will let her know when he's finished keeping a lookout for anybody approaching. She may already know that excellent clock of hers. All right. Harry thinks of the clock. Phineas Nigellus shows up. Dumbledore tells him, visit your other portrait. That is the one in the Black House, in the room Harry was staying in. Ginny comes in, Fred and George come in. Dumbledore makes a portkey and has them use the portkey. All right? On the count of 3, when Harry gets ready to touch the portkey, he looks into Dumbledore's face, bottom of 474. It happened in a fraction of a second. In the infinitesimal pause before Dumbledore said 3, Harry looked up at him. They were very close together, and Dumbledore's clear blue gaze moved from the portkey to Harry's face. At once, Harry's scar burned white hot. As though the old wound had burst open again, and unbidden, unwanted, but terrifyingly strong, there rose within Harry a hatred so powerful he felt that for that instant he would like nothing better than to strike, to bite, to sink his fangs into the man before him. And he was gone. Harry doesn't understand what that means until he gets to the end of this book. And in fact, it's not even totally understandable then. They find themselves at number 12 Grimmel Place. They want to go off to St. Mungo's. Sirius says you can't. He gets them all some butterbeer, and they wait in the kitchen for what news? Is Dad gonna live? Sirius tries to keep things light. Okay. Fawkes arrives. Middle of 478, Dad is still alive, setting out for St. Mungo's now. This is from Molly. Stay where you are, etc. Okay? 479, Mrs. Weasley comes in. He's going to be all right. He's sleeping. We'll go see him later. Bill's sitting with them. Okay? Sirius crawls out for Creature. Creature doesn't come. He gives breakfast. Hold on. Nope, okay. Mrs. Weasley thanks Harry, bottom of 479, top of 480. If it hadn't been for you, we never would have known. What's Harry thinking? He kind of thinks he did it. He doesn't know how. So, he tells Sirius, 480, 481, Sirius, I think I'm going mad. Just before we took the portkey, I thought I was a snake. I felt like one. My scar really hurt. I wanted to attack him. Now, what did Dumbledore tell Harry about his scar hurting? One of two things. Voldemort's really near, or Voldemort's really angry. He could only see a sliver of Sirius's face. The rest was in darkness. Must have been the aftermath of the vision. You're still thinking of... No, Harry says, it's like something rose up inside me like there's a snake inside me. You need some sleep, man. So, the next morning, they go off to... What time is it? 9 o'clock. They go off to St. Mungo's. Might be able to get up there. And they get to the elevators. They see the sign about where, the different floors and the kind of healings that are performed on each floor. We find out someone's there to see Broderick Bode, a name we've seen before. And they go up to Arthur Weasley's room, 486, 487. Tonks is with them. They say, Molly, you go in by yourself first. She's like, no, don't be silly. Arthur wants to say thank you to Harry. Harry goes in. Mr. Weasley says he's fine, 488. And Fred asks, why can't they take the bandages off? Mr. Weasley, start bleeding like mad every time they try. Okay? Why? They're trying a non-magical way of healing first. Experimental, so to speak. Human, in other words. All right? Fred asks, are you going to tell us what happened? He says, well, don't you know? Had a very long day, fell asleep, got snuck up on, something bit me. All right? George, where were you when it happened? None of your business. That's my business. They leave. Everybody but Mrs. Weasley. Tonks goes inside with Arthur. Moody goes inside with Arthur. And Fred and George pull out the extendable ears with Harry. 491. Moody says, I reckon he sent it as a lookout. Because he's not had any luck so far, has he? I reckon he's trying to get a clear picture of what he's facing. And if Arthur hadn't been there, the beast would have had that much more time to look around. So Potter says he saw it all happen. Mrs. Weasley, yes. Dumbledore seems to have been waiting for something like this. Moody, there's something funny about that Potter kid. Mrs. Weasley, Dumbledore seemed worried about Harry when I spoke to him this morning. Of course he's worried. The boy's seeing things from inside you-know-who's snake. Obviously, Potter doesn't realize what that means, but if you know who's possessing him, Harry pulls the extendable ears out and is like, what's that mean? If you know who's possessing him. If Voldemort is possessing Harry, then, we're going to find out later, there should be elements of Harry's past, moments in Harry's time that he can't account for, that he can't remember. Christmas on the Closed Ward, next chapter. Harry's thinking, I'm the weapon. I'm the weapon that Voldemort is looking for. Remember when he first went to number 12 Privet Drive, they have a discussion that evening. Harry wants to know what's going on. He wants to know why he's been kept out of the loop. And Molly and Arthur and others say it's what Dumbledore wants. And Sirius finally says, I think Harry has a right to know. It's all about him anyways. Molly challenges him. And he says, don't worry, I'm not going to give everything away, but we're going to give some. Arthur supports them against Molly. So they agree to tell Harry some of what Voldemort is up to, and all he knows is he's after some kind of weapon. Okay. Christmas on the Closed Ward. Mrs. Weasley asks if Harry's all right. He's I'm fine. He stays up in his room the whole time. Phineas Nigellus has long talks with him about what a snotty little kid he is, thinking he's always right about everything. It's why he stopped teaching, couldn't stand students and such. All right. 499, he talks with Harry. He talks with Ron, Hermione, Ginny. And Ginny finally gets Harry to say, if they think I'm being possessed by Voldemort, she goes, gee, Harry, you could have asked somebody who's been possessed by Voldemort. Book 2, while Ginny was possessed by the soul, the spirit, the diary, whatever in Tom Riddle's diary, what did she do? She daubed the blood, ere the Slytherin mudblood beware on the 3rd floor wall. She choked the chickens. She opened the chamber. And during all those times that she did those things, she had no recollection of them. She said that there were hours that she could not account for. Harry, oh, you're right. I'm not the weapon. So now he feels, a little bit of comfort. Skip a bit. Hermione gives Creature a Christmas present. 504. If you remember, Sirius kicked Creature out. He said, "Get out of here," which we find out later Creature takes seriously. So they go back up to see Mr. Weasley. And they do see him. They leave after seeing Arthur. 509, they run into Gilderoy Lockhart, who's offering signed pictures. And then 512, 513. They see Neville. Neville's at the end of the hallway. Harry tries to get them to leave quickly because at 512, just above the top, just above the first half, we hear the nurse say, "And oh, Mrs. Longbottom, are you leaving already?" Harry turns, the curtains have been drawn back, and there's a woman walking down the aisle. And he sees Neville. He tries to get the others out of there. Ron sees Neville, calls out to him. And we meet Neville's grandmother on 513. "Friends of yours, Neville dear?" Neville looked as though he'd rather be anywhere in the world but here. Why? And then she says, "Oh, yes. Yes, I know who you are, of course. Neville speaks most highly of you. Thanks. You two are clearly Weasleys. Why? Red hair. I know your parents, not well, of course, but fine people. And you must be Hermione Granger. Neville's told me all about you. Helped him out of a few sticky spots. Haven't you? He's a good boy. Hasn't got his father's talent, I'm afraid to say." And she jerks her head in the direction of the curtains. "Ron, is that your dad? Down there? What's this? You haven't told your friends about your parents, Neville?" He shakes his head. "Nothing to be ashamed of. You should be proud, Neville, proud. They didn't give their health and their sanity, so their only son would be ashamed of them, you know. I'm not ashamed." Notice, she's assuming he's ashamed by what happened to his parents. Neville tells us, "I'm not ashamed." Does that mean the opposite? He's proud of them? We're not told. I kind of think that's the case. Well, you've got a funny way of showing it. And then she turns to Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Ginny. "My son and his wife were tortured into insanity by you-know-who's followers. They were Aurors, you know. Very well respected within the wizarding community. Highly gifted, the pair of them." And Neville's mother comes shuffling down the aisle. She's got on a gown. Her hair is wispy, and I could show you a picture of my mom. Dead ringer for this. My mom died of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is essentially like what they have. And we're told she no longer had the plump, happy-looking face Harry had seen in Moody's old photograph. Her face was thin and worn now. Her eyes seemed overlarge. Her hair, which had turned white, wispy and dead-looking. She did not seem to want to speak, or perhaps she was not able to. But she made timid motions toward Neville, holding something in her outstretched hand. So she kind of does this. "Again," says Mrs. Longbottom. "Very well, Alice dear, very well. Neville, take it, whatever it is." Neville had already, before she even says that, stretched out his hand, into which his mother dropped an empty Drubel's blowing gum wrapper. "Very nice, dear," says the grandmother. Neville, thanks, Mom. His mother turns around, totters back up the ward, humming to herself. Neville's grandmother. Very nice to have met you all. Neville, put that wrapper in the bin. She must have given you enough of them to paper your bedroom by now. And Harry notices Neville puts it in his pocket. Why does Rowling show us this scene? What day is it? It's Christmas Day. Dumbledore, Book 4, when Harry looks into the pensive, Harry asks, is that Neville's parents? Dumbledore explained what happened to him. And he said, I believe Neville sees them on holiday. Christmas holiday, Easter holiday, summer holidays. I don't think they know him anymore, he says to that effect. That is, they don't recognize Neville. What does this tell us? Like hell they don't. Or like hell she doesn't. She recognizes Neville because what did Neville's mother just do? She gave him a birthday present. Excuse me, she gave him a Christmas present. Why does Neville keep them? They're a tangible connection to his parents. When Mrs. Longbottom, his grandmother, says, you must have enough of them to have, she must have given you enough of them to paper your bedroom by now. What does she mean? To wallpaper. How many of those has Neville received then? Maybe it's just exaggeration. Maybe it's meant to be literal. And Neville goes. Possibly every day when he's on vacation. And every day his mother hands him one of these. So, metaphorically, if Neville papers his bedroom with these, what does that mean? And I literally never made this connection until just now. It's like Harry looking into the mirror of Erised, surrounded by his family. Here's Neville in the middle of his room. And he looks around and he sees those gifts from his mother. Why is this significant? There's an image, there's two images actually, that run throughout the novels from the first one to the end one. The two images are whole families, W-H-O-L-E, functioning families, good families, loving families. What's the model for that? The Weasleys. And then there are fractured families. There are broken families. Models, Harry's, Neville's, Voldemort's, we're going to find out. Snape's, we're going to find out. A whole bunch of them. Okay?
Hogwarts itself be considered a family as well? Kind of.
And what did we discuss the other day?
Yeah,
Hogwarts is broken. It's downhearted. I used to get all choked up when I did this part. She says we should get back. They leave. Harry was sure he saw Neville slip the wrapper into his pocket. Hermione, I never knew. She doesn't understand why Neville's hands are like this when Moody tortures the spider. Nor I, says Ron. Nor me, says Ginny. I did, says Harry. Dumbledore told me, but I promised I wouldn't mention it. That's what Bellatrix Lestrange got sent to Azkaban for, using the Cruciatus curse on Neville's parents until they lost their minds. Hermione, Bellatrix Lestrange did that? The woman creature's got a photo of? Like his goddess that he worships? Uh-huh. This is the creature she's going to try to turn. She's going to try to redeem. Going to try to convert. Uh-huh. Occlumency. 10 minutes left. So, they go back to number 12. Snape's there. Why? Where's my eraser? Oh, don't do that. Snape is there on a personal mission from the head of the Order of the Phoenix, Dumbledore. Why? Snape's got to teach Harry, bottom of 518, occlumency. Occlu, like an occlusion, is something that blocks your sight. Occult, not L-U, but U-L, is something that is hidden. Okay? So, occlumency, the magical, top of 519, the magical defense of the mind against external penetration. Obscure branch of magic, but highly useful. Why do I have to study it? Because Dumbledore wants you to. Next question. Okay? Who's teaching me? I am. Why can't Dumbledore? Why you? 1, headmaster's privilege to give orders, distasteful orders, So, Harry agrees. Snape and Sirius, they're working together, but what? They still utterly detest each other. They go off to school, Tonks, Lupin, etc., wish them, good luck and such. 5:30, 5:31. Harry has his first lesson in occlumency. What else does he learn about? Legilimency. E-N, sorry, not A-N. What is that? It is the ability, 5:30, to extract feelings and memories from another person's mind. Harry does something we see him do in all the books, beginning with book 1. He's just listened to Snape describe legilimency from what kind of perspective? Or what is Snape given? He's given the textbook definition of it. Harry doesn't understand textbook definitions. So what does he do? He interprets them. He puts them in words he can understand. He can read minds. That's what the ability to extract feelings and memories from another person's mind. He can read minds. You have no subtlety, Potter. And it's true. Harry's pretty thick when it comes to subtlety and shades of meaning, You do not understand fine distinctions. So Harry again asks, why do I have to learn occlumency? Shouldn't Harry understand from the conversation? Snape tells him, top of 531. The Dark Lord, for instance, almost always knows when somebody is lying to him. In other words, he is an adept. He is a master of legilimency. Then why do I have to learn? Harry should be able to do what? Infer from what Snape is saying that somehow the Dark Lord can read Harry's mind. Usual rules don't seem to apply to you, Potter. Curse that failed to kill you, killed you. Some seems to have forged a connection between you. Dumbledore wants to break that connection. All right? So, Harry says, I saw inside the snake's head. Not Voldemort's. Snape, 532. Don't say his name. Dumbledore says his name. You're not Dumbledore. You seem to have visited the snake's mind because that was where the Dark Lord was at that particular moment. So he could put himself in other things. He realized I was there. It seems so. What's Snape getting at? And if Voldemort realized that you were inside the snake's mind, he could see inside your mind. Okay? So, and he might try to make me do things. What did Harry feel when he briefly looked into Dumbledore's eyes? Kill, So back to occlumency. I'm going to attempt to break into your mind, Potter. We're going to see how well you resist. I've been told you can resist the Imperious Curse. Similar things are what you need to do here. So brace yourself. Legilimens! Does he give him any clues, any indications how to block? No. What does Harry, and therefore also Snape, see? Harry was 534, watching Dudley riding a new bicycle. His heart was bursting with jealousy. He was 9, Ripper the Bulldog, chasing him up a tree, Dursley's all laughing, sitting under the sorting hat, telling him, "You do well in Slytherin." Hermione, lying in the hospital wing, face covered with thick black hair from the Polyjuice potion. 100 Dementors. Cho Chang, moving in for the kill, under the mistletoe. And Harry's like, hell no. Did you mean to produce a stinging hex? No. So, you let me get in too far. What? You lost control. Did you see everything I saw? Flashes. Who'd the dog belong to? Aunt Marge. Not as poor as it might have been for a first attempt. You managed to stop me eventually. Why is it important or significant that Snape sees these things? What does he learn about Harry from this vision? Not the favored, pampered kid that he's assumed. He sees what happens to Harry at home. He's bullied. Okay? He does it again. Harry, you're not telling me how. Clear your mind. How? Have you ever tried, all kinds of gurus and such say, clear your mind. How? Just sit there and, I'm clearing my mind. This time he does it again. He sees the dragon. And again, he sees Cedric. What's this telling us? We didn't have the term when this, I don't think it was used then, in 2003 when this book is published. Harry suffers from PTSD. More than just one instance caused it, more than one trauma. Goes all the way back to his parents. Okay? Empty yourself of emotion. Snape tells him, I'm finding that hard at the moment. Then you will find yourself easy prey for the Dark Lord, says Snape on 536. Fools who wear their hearts proudly on their sleeves, who cannot control their emotions, who wallow in sad memories, and allow themselves to be provoked this easily, weak people, in other words, they stand no chance against his powers. Does Harry wallow in sad memories? Does he think about it? Does he revel? No, he doesn't. I'm not weak. Then prove it. Master yourself. Notice that. Yourself is spelled with one word here. But what does it mean? Master yourself. Your inside, your soul. Let your soul control everything. He sees Uncle Vernon. He sees Dementors. He sees the passage with no windows and a door at the end. Snape, what are you doing in there? Why do you have that image in your mind, Potter? Harry, what's in the Department of Mysteries? Because now he finally remembers where he has seen that door or that corridor. Back at the trial, he and Mr. Weasley went down a wrong. Okay. We'll stop there. We'll pick up on 537. Didn't get quite as far as we wanted to, but close enough. We'll get pick up with 537 on today's Thursday. On Tuesday. I'll put up a quiz. Yeah. Unless I've already done it. I don't think I have. I'll put up the quiz over the first half of Order of the Phoenix today, real shortly after I get home. I've canceled my second class, so I'll do that within 45 minutes. It won't be due till Monday. Have a good, why are you not waking up? Have a good weekend.